This story is drawn from the Buddhist scriptures, including the Pali Canon, ancient commentaries, and Mahayana sutras. The words of the Buddha have not been changed. In the training yard inside Rajagaha city walls, the other princes left when practice ended, but young Bimbisara stayed, wooden sword in hand, staring north at the ring of mountains. The 5 peaks of Girivraja stood close enough to touch. He had been told since before he could speak that those mountains kept enemies out. He never understood why that felt like a cage. His father lay ill under a heavy blanket, even in summer heat, voice thin. When the servants left, the old king looked at his son for a long time.
Do you remember Anga?
Bimbisara nodded. Anga, the kingdom east of Magadha, separated by the Kampa River. His father had marched there and come home without victory. The coughing had started after that.
I left something unfinished. Brahmadatta trusts the river to stop us. But a river is not for blocking. It is for crossing.
He said nothing more. Before winter ended, he was gone. Bimbisara became king. His beard had not yet grown in. The morning of his first court session, he stood before the throne and did not move. His father's smell still lived in it, incense, sweat, old wood. He breathed in once, then sat down. The ministers bowed. He read their eyes one by one. Loyalty, testing, waiting, calculation. He showed nothing. The campaign against Anga came not long after. Ministers objected. He listened, then said,
"My father left something unfinished. Finishing it is the first work of a king of Magadha."
He led the crossing himself at dawn in thick fog. The Kampa ran cold. When his forces came from 2 directions at once through the mist, Brahmadatta's line broke. When Brahmadatta surrendered, Bimbisara did not kill him. His ministers were puzzled.
"Killing is easy,"
he said.
"Making a man into a citizen of Magadha is harder."
He rode home through cheering crowds, hand raised in answer. His face looked right, but something inside felt hollow. He had widened the kingdom. Was that all? A marriage proposal came from Kosala. King Mahakosala would send his daughter, sister of young Prince Pasenadi, to be Bimbisara's queen. The ministers called it a good alliance. He spent several days alone with the question anyway. The princess arrived at the end of the reigns. He watched her step from her carriage without help, waving off the servant who reached for her. That small thing caught his attention. When they met formally, she spoke without performing.
"The 5 peaks were striking,"
she said. Savatthi had no mountains like that.
"Those mountains have kept us safe a long time,"
Bimbisara said. She replied,
"I wonder whether it is the mountains that keep you safe, or the people inside them."
He remembered that sentence for years. They married. Her father gave her a small village in Kasi as dowry. No one thought it would matter. He called her Kosala Devi. People also called her Vedehi, woman of the Videha lands. Their first night, they talked until late, not of politics. She spoke of Kosala. He told her about sitting on his father's throne for the first time, a story he had never told anyone. She listened, then said simply,
"That must have been heavy."
4 words that reached something in him. Before the year closed, the queen was carrying a child. A craving took hold of her. She could not name for days. She needed blood from the king's right knee. She could not eat.
Her attendants told the king. The king went to her room,
Listened, and without hesitating called for a golden bowl. He opened his right knee with a blade, filled the bowl, and handed it to her himself. Then he called the soothsayers. Their faces darkened. The child in the womb, they said, would bring the father's ruin. The queen shook. She went to the garden outside the palace and tried to end the pregnancy. People called that place Matakuchi, the place of pressing out the womb. But the child came anyway. Bimbisara held the baby's hand, small and warm. The child opened its eyes. He looked back for a long time. The name was Ajatasattu, enemy before birth. Yet whenever Bimbisara spoke that name, his voice was soft. People would later call the child Vedehiputta, son of Vedehi. Around this time, a young prince named Siddhartha Gautama had left his palace in Kapilavatthu, the man who would one day be known to the whole world as the Buddha. At that time, he had not yet reached awakening. He was still searching, testing teachers, testing practices, walking toward an answer he had not found. Bimbisara did not know this. He only sensed that the ascetic was not ordinary. One morning, a servant came to the king.
A monk is walking alms round in the city. He appears to be of royal or noble birth. His walk is not like other men's.
King Bimbisara rose from his seat and went himself, with only a few attendants. He saw the ascetic from a distance, alms bowl in hand. The robe caught the morning light, or perhaps the light came from the man himself. He could not tell. He sent a servant ahead to follow him. The ascetic climbed the slope below Mount Pandava outside the city walls. He ate what he had received, then sat quietly. Bimbisara climbed up after him. When the king approached, the ascetic did not rise. Bimbisara did not find this strange. He sat down in front of him, his own ministers watching in surprise behind him. The king asked,
"Where do you come from? What is your family?"
The ascetic answered,
"Great king, there is a country on the slopes of the Himalayas beside the Kosala land, a people of wealth and courage. Their clan belongs to the solar lineage, the Sakyan people. From that family I went forth. I saw fault in sensual pleasures. I saw in going forth the giving up of all that. That is the road I am walking."
The king looked at him.
Sakyan, royal lineage, left everything behind.
He leaned forward.
You are young. You are like a flower just opening. I will give you wealth. I will give you the highest rank in my army. Please accept.
The ascetic said,
"Great king, I have seen the fault in pleasures. That is not the road I am walking."
Not refusal, but eyes already aimed at something else entirely. Bimbisara rose.
Then when you have found what you are seeking, come back to this land.
The ascetic nodded.
"I will come."
The king walked down the hill. Those words stayed with him for years. I have seen fault in pleasures. He understood those words and did not understand them. He was a king. He turned the question over and kept it unnamed. 6 years passed. Ajatasattu had learned to walk, learned to speak, and was now first picking up a bow long enough. Yet the hillside conversation felt like yesterday to King Bimbisara. The news reached Rajagaha one morning. The Buddha was coming. The king walked in on foot, leaving his carriage at the forest edge. The Buddha sat under a tree with his monks. Bimbisara saw his face, the same face, yet different. Before, it had been the face of someone moving towards something. Now, it was the face of someone who had arrived. Nothing in those eyes moved. Bimbisara went to his knees without planning to. The Buddha taught. The king listened. The scriptures record,
"Formations are impermanent. Their nature is to arise and pass away. What arises will cease. In their stilling is happiness."
something opened in King Bimbisara. He thought of riding home from Anga, hollow inside. He thought of the throne. When the teaching ended, he rose and joined his palms.
Lord, when I was young, I held 5 wishes. First, to become a king. Second, for a fully awakened one, to come to my kingdom. Third, to meet him. Fourth, to hear the teaching. Fifth, to understand it. Lord, today all 5 have come true.
He took refuge. He was the first king to do so. The next day, he invited the Buddha to the palace. When the meal was done, he carried a golden water jar and poured it over the Buddha's hands.
Lord, I offer Vilavana, the bamboo grove, to the Buddha and the Sangha.
The Buddha accepted. Vichuvana became the first monastery in the history of Buddhism. Not long after, 2 men came there, Upatissa and Kolita, friends who had searched for truth together. On the day they ordained, they became Sariputta and Moggallana. Sariputta had heard one verse from the monk Assaji on a Rajagaha street. Of things that arise from causes, the Tathagata has taught the cause and their cessation also. One sentence opened the eye of the Dhamma in him. He ran to Kolita. They went to the Buddha. The Buddha declared them chief disciples. Sariputta, foremost in wisdom, his right hand. Moggallana, foremost in spiritual power, his left. Among the 10 great disciples, these 2 stood highest. In every monastery since, 2 figures stand at the Buddha's sides. Those are the 2. And this all happened at Ve'uvana, the grove Bimbisara had given. When he heard the news, he sat quietly. Then,
it was good to give that grove.
Prince Abaya, was riding through Rajagaha one morning when crows circled a wicker basket on a rubbish heap. He stopped, climbed down, and looked inside. A newborn baby, eyes open, still alive. When the prince leaned close, the child moved its arm. Someone said, "He is alive, Yivati." That became the name, Yivaka, the living one. Because a prince raised him, he was also called Komarabhaka, nourished by a prince. Prince Abaya was King Bimbisara's son. The mother was found out later, a well-known courtesan named Salavati. A child would end her livelihood, so she had left him there. When Jivaka learned this, he said nothing. He sat with it a long time, then looked forward. He decided to study medicine. He left for Taxila without asking anyone's permission. A teacher named Atreya was said to be the finest physician alive. The journey was months long. Jivaka walked it. He studied for 7 years. The day the teacher called him in, he said,
Go through the land around us, for 1 yojana in every direction. Bring me any plant that cannot be used as medicine.
3 days of searching. Jivaka came back with empty hands.
There is no such plant,
He said.
Then you are ready,
said Atreya.
Go.
Jivaka had no travel money. In the first town he reached, a merchant's wife had suffered headaches for years. He treated her through the nose with prepared oils, and she recovered. The merchant tried to give him a large reward. Jivaka took only enough for the road. Back in Rajagaha, his name spread quickly. King Bimbisara had a long-standing illness, an anal fistula that many doctors had failed to treat. Jivaka was brought in. He examined the king quietly and completely, then said,
I can heal this. But you must rest during treatment. Can a king stop holding court for several days? Yes,
said King Bimbisara. The treatment worked. The king wanted to give Jivaka the ornaments of all 5 of his queens. Jivaka refused. Why not? The king asked. Treating the king is my gift to the king. I cannot take payment for it. King Bimbisara made him royal physician. Jivaka accepted that. Later, the Buddha suffered a foot injury. Some said a rock that Devadatta had sent rolling had struck it. The wound would not close. King Bimbisara sent Jivaka to Ve'uvana. For 7 days, Jivaka came each morning, changed the dressing, and watched the wound heal slowly. While he worked, he watched the monks. Early alms walks, 1 meal, sitting in stillness, listening to the teaching. That plain life stayed with him. On the 7th day, the Buddha said,
Jivaka, if there is something you want, speak.
Lord, I want to be the physician for the king, the royal family, and the monastic community.
The Buddha accepted. From that day, Jivaka served both King Bimbisara and the Buddha, the same man, moving between 2 worlds. Near the road to Veduvana, he planted a mango grove, Yivakambhavana, and later gave it to the Buddha and the Sangha. King Bimbisara heard this and smiled. The baby from the rubbish heap was now physician to both the king and the Buddha, living exactly as his name said. The king kept coming to Ve'uvana. He left his carriage at the entrance and walked in, alone, wearing plain robes. He listened to teachings. He sat in silence before going home. The duties of a king were still there. Court sessions, the Kasi village taxes, word that Pasenadi was now ruling Kosala. Ajatasattu was growing louder in his opinions. When Bimbisara looked at his son, he felt 2 things at once, love and something he could not name. But walking out of Vechuvana, it all sat a little lighter. What arises will cease. He was beginning to understand this. The words had not yet traveled from his mind to his chest. He did not rush them. That too, he had come to understand, was part of the teaching. Reports came in slowly, then all at once. Prince Ajatasattu was meeting Devadatta, the Buddha's cousin, ordained with Ananda, every morning and evening. 500 cartloads of food sent to him. A monastery built at Gayasisa. King Bimbisara closed his eyes when he heard this. What happened next, the scriptures record plainly. Devadatta came to the prince's quarters one day, and without warning transformed. In an instant, he became a small boy wrapped in snakes, sitting on the prince's knee. The prince went rigid with fear and wonder. Then Devadatta returned to his own form. From that day, Ajatasattu followed Devadatta completely. The Buddha said to his monks,
These gains will be his ruin. As a banana plant is destroyed by its own fruit, so an unwise person's gains destroy him.
Then came the day Devadatta stood before the full assembly. The king and his court were there and addressed the Buddha.
Lord, you are aged now. Hand the Sangha over to me. I will lead it.
The hall went silent. The Buddha said,
Enough, Devadatta. Do not seek to lead the Sangha.
Devadatta asked again and again. The third time, the Buddha said,
I would not hand the Sangha even to Sariputta and Moggallana. To one like you, even less.
Devadatta's face hardened. He unclasped his hands and left. King Bimbisara watched. The refusal had been total, yet it came from nowhere near anger. He could sense that clearly. What it came from, he still could not name. Devadatta went to Prince Ajatasattu. He said,
You may die waiting for the throne. Deal with your father. I will deal with the Buddha.
One night, the prince tied a knife to his thigh and crept toward his father's room. Guards caught him. Ministers gathered. Some said, execute the prince. Some said, execute both. Others said, tell the king first. They brought Ajatasattu before King Bimbisara. The king looked at his son. He thought of the golden bowl of blood he had held out long ago. He thought of the small, warm hand.
Why did you want to kill me?
Long silence. Then,
I wanted the kingdom.
the scriptures record what the king said.
Then take it.
He handed the kingdom to his son. There, in that room, without ceremony, the ministers looked at one another. No one had imagined this. To Bimbisara, it was simple. The kingdom would go to Ajatasattu eventually. Holding the throne would not change that. Once Ajatasattu had the throne, Devadatta moved quickly. Assassins were sent to kill the Buddha. They could not do it. When they stood before him, they dropped their weapons and took refuge instead. Devadatta rolled a boulder from a cliff while the Buddha walked below. It missed, leaving only a cut on the foot Jivaka had already healed. Then the elephant Na'agiri, drugged and furious, was released into the alms-round streets. The elephant charged toward the Buddha. The Buddha sent loving kindness toward it. The elephant slowed. It stopped. It knelt. The Buddha laid a hand on its forehead. The elephant turned and walked away. These things reached King Bimbisara one by one. He was no longer king. But he had made that choice himself. When he heard about the elephant, he sat for a long time without speaking. Kosala Devi was nearby. She said nothing. That silence held more comfort than any words could have.
He wanted to go to Veluvana.
But he was now the father of the reigning king. He did not know what Ajatasattu would allow. That was the first thing that felt like fear. Not losing the throne, but losing the road to the place where the Buddha lived. That road was not yet closed. But now he could not be sure. King Ajatasattu put his father in a heated cell, the darkest, most airless room in the palace. No food was to be given. He would be starved. King Bimbisara was alone. No throne, no ministers, no windows. What remained was the body's hunger, and something that would not shake. At first, Queen Kosala Devi was allowed in. Each day, she hid food on her body, first in a golden bowl inside her robe, then in her hair, then in her shoes. Each time discovered, she did not stop. She bathed in scented water and covered herself in honey, butter, ghee, and molasses. She went to her husband. He licked what she had brought. That was his only food. When Ajatasattu found out, her visits ended entirely. The Amitāyurdhyana Sutra records what happened next. Alone and unable to reach her husband, the queen knelt and called out toward the Buddha. Before her prayer was finished, the scriptures say, the Buddha knew. He came to her in light and sent Sariputta and Moggallana as well. She wept.
Lord, what wrong did I do to bring such a son into the world?
The Buddha said,
The Dehi, living beings are born into suffering because of unwholesome actions. To be free, gather your mind and turn it toward the western pure land of Amitabha. That world holds no affliction, no evil, no pain. See it clearly. Wish to be born there.
The queen received this teaching. In the darkness, she grew still. That light crossed the prison wall. King Bimbisara lay in his cell with his mind's eye open. The scriptures record that he saw the Buddha from far away, bowed his head, and at that moment attained the third stage of awakening, the non-returner, anagami. He had entered the stream years before, on the day he confessed his 5 wishes at Vayuvana. Now, through a single shaft of light in a prison cell, he went further. King Bimbisara walked back and forth in the cell as monks walk between periods of sitting, slow, one step and then the next. He had learned this at Vayuvana. Now he did it here. Formations are impermanent. What arises will cease. The throne is impermanent. This body is impermanent. But there is something that does not pass. Ajatasattu heard his father was still alive. He sent men to find out how. The report came back.
He walks. He is keeping himself alive by walking.
The king sent a barber. When King Bimbisara saw the barber enter, tears came to his eyes, tears of joy.
My son has changed his mind. He is sending someone to shave me, to make me ready for release.
The barber came with 2 soldiers. The king looked at that and understood. The scriptures record it plainly. The barber opened the soles of the king's feet with a blade. He packed the wounds with salt and vinegar. Then they made the king stand on burning coals. The barber wept. The soldiers kept their heads down. No one wanted to do this, but it was the new king's command. King Bimbisara did not blame them. He did not blame his son. The scriptures bear witness. In that pain, his mind did not break. Then King Bimbisara died. That same day, a messenger reached Ajatasattu. His wife had given birth to a son. He held the child, small and warm. Something in his chest cracked open. He went to find his mother. Did my father love me? Queen Kosaladevi spoke quietly.
Do you remember the boil on your finger? When you were small, no one could get you to sleep. Your father stopped his court session and ran to you. He held your finger in his mouth until the boil burst inside it. He did not spit it out. He swallowed the pus and blood. That is how he loved you.
Go free my father, quickly.
A minister stepped forward slowly.
Great king, your father died this morning.
Ajatasattu fell. The child in his arms began to cry. King Bimbisara was reborn as a spirit named Janavasabha. The Janavasabha Sutta, DN 18, records that he appeared before the Buddha and said,
Lord, I am Bimbisara. 7 more times I will pass between this world and the next, and then I will bring this to an end.
Queen Kosaladevi died of grief. Her brother Pasenadi refused to pass the Kasi village revenues to the man who had killed his sister's husband. Ajatasattu declared war. They made peace. Pasenadi gave his daughter Vajira to Ajatasattu and returned the Kasi village as dowry. Vayuvana still stood. The Buddha remained. Ajatasattu could not sleep. Every night felt like spears. Jivaka said,
Go to the Buddha.
One full moon night, the king came to the mango grove. The Buddha taught. When the king had gone, the Buddha told his monks,
If he had not killed his father, the eye of the Dhamma would have opened in him that night.
King Bimbisara had done everything a father could do. He gave the kingdom. He gave his life, without anger. The rest belonged to his son. The scriptures close the story of those around King Bimbisara this way. Queen Kama saw impermanence in beauty before the Buddha and became an arahant that same day. The Buddha named her foremost in wisdom among his nun disciples. Prince Abhaya ordained and became an arahant. He then went to his mother Padumavati and taught her the Dhamma. She too ordained and became an arahant. The Therigatha records her verse. Mother and son had reached the same place. Ambapali's son, Vimala Kondyanya, saw the Buddha's presence in Visali and ordained, becoming an arahant. He then preached to his mother. Hearing him, Ambapali renounced the world and ordained. She took her own aging body as her meditation subject, its impermanence, its fragility, and attained arahantship. The Therigatha records 19 verses she spoke in old age, comparing the beauty she once had with what remained. The same pattern twice over. A son reaches the far shore first, then turns back for his mother. King Bimbisara himself had reached the third stage, anagami, the non-returner, one who will not be born again in the realm of desire. Only the son who killed him did not reach that place. The Buddha said it plainly.
If he had not killed his father, the eye of the Dhamma would have opened in him that night.
One king's life became a teaching, not through words, but through the way he lived it.